I'm going to dig right in because I have so many questions and they're all here. So I'm going to see what we have time for, and you tell me if you want to go. Let's make this very off the cuff.
Okay.
So many questions, but one of your teachers said she'd never seen anyone with quite like you as far as drive goes. How did that get shaped so early in your life? What happened to give you that drive?
Well, I grew up in one of the poorest counties in Alabama, and my ambitions then was to get out of those poor conditions and to achieve as much as possible. I knew education was the way to go. I also knew that I had to aspire to get as much as I could and to get out in the world to make a difference too.
Well, by listening to you, you're not from Brooklyn.
No, this southern drawl, I'm from Alabama, and the southern, and it's really, in fact, the New York Times made a statement early on about my southern drawl, and I thought about,
I hope it was complimentary.
Yeah, well, I thought, well, maybe I should get some speech classes and sort of, get out of it, but then I decided, no, that's who I was, and people remembered who I was, and they remembered the story, and that was what I was going for.
Your accent is part of you, so I'm sure it's amazing. You were one of 4 managers at Goodyear Tire and Rubber, where you worked for almost 20 years. The other 3 were men doing the exact same job. One day, I think we've all, I don't know, I've had this experience. You got an anonymous note that said you were being paid 40% less than your male counterparts. First, what was your reaction? And then did you ever find out who wrote that anonymous note?
I did not. Okay. I did not. In fact, whoever
We need to thank that person.
Yeah,
all women in the United States.
Really, we should. But I do not. But I was so devastated. First, I felt humiliated, embarrassed, and then my first thoughts was to the amount of overtime that I had earned. And it was nothing unusual for me to work 12-hour shifts 7 nights a week for 2 months straight. And I thought about all the overtime pay and how much my family had lost. And then the other thing I thought immediately was my retirement, my 401k, and someday my Social Security. I had been shortchanged in a way that it would go on for the rest of my life.
Thank goodness you stood up. Your brakes were tampered with, your windshield was smashed. This is kind of gross. A bucket of tobacco spit thrown onto your car.
Yes.
You never shared all of this with your husband and your children. I just spoke to your daughter backstage. She said she didn't know.
No.
How did you possess the strength and the courage to keep going?
Well, to have the job I had and being in management and being a trailblazer, because I was one of the first women Goodyear had ever had in managing men. And in some departments, I'd have as many as 52 working for me. But it was so important and it was so critical. And the thing, it was a good job. It wasn't just a man's job. It was a job. And I wanted to prove my ability and to make a difference and to be able to make headway for women to come after me.
I find it fascinating when people say a man's job or a women's job. I was once introduced as a woman's CEO. Here's Tory Burch, the woman's CEO.
Right.
And I got up and I was so amazed. I said, I've never heard a man being introduced by a male CEO.
That's right. That's right.
And quite honestly, it shouldn't be about gender ever. Personally, I think it's about the quality of work. And the fact that we're still speaking about that today is very upsetting, but I think women like you are changing that, and certainly that change needs to happen very quickly. But your husband was very supportive of you throughout all of this. He supported you filing that charge. And what was the process like? And how come he was this angel that just went for it? And
well, I got home the morning of when I got the note the night before, and that was the day I worked out. I had another 2 days off, and I explained to him how much money this had cost our family. And I said, I earned it. That's what's so sad about it. This is legally my money that I should have had and brought home. And I said, I must file a charge with the Equal Employment Commission unless you object. And he said, what time would you like to leave?
That's amazing.
So he drove me to Birmingham, Alabama, which was 75 miles away. And he supported me right up until his death in December of '08. He never lived to see the bill passed, but he knew it would because, and he died with cancer. He had 4 in the last few years, and the worst one had been on his left side of his face. In fact, I went to Washington and sat in the Supreme Court to hear my case 2 weeks after they removed the left side of his face and grafted skin. But he supported me. He said, we've been in this all this way. You've got to do it.
Wow, thank you. And that's so tough, but incredible story. We often say that men have to be part of the conversation. If we don't have men weighing in on equal pay, on being great with ambitious women, we're going to be talking to ourselves. It's 50% of the population.
That's right.
What were some of the other women's reactions to your actions?
I had some support. In fact, I had 2 women that was working at Goodyear. That one was still working, and she testified for me at trial. I had one who she testified, but she'd already sold her 22 years of service and left and was working for another corporation. But she took a day's vacation and came to court. Wow. And so that helped my case a great deal. But you don't get a lot of support when you stand up for something like this.
And you see who supports you and who doesn't.
That's right. You see who your real friends are. And my neighbor asked, why did I go take a man's job? And I said, well, it was just a job.
You have that neighbor's number?
I know. He's deceased now, but he really thought I had taken a man's job, and I should not have done that.
I'm not sure what that means, but anyway, the Supreme Court denied your filing. Why?
They found a slight technicality somewhere that they could disallow. The lower federal court had given me $3.8 million award, which that was to offset all of my lost wages, lost overtime, and future retirements. And but the Supreme Court said you definitely were discriminated against, but you waited too long. But it's hard to file a charge if you don't know.
You didn't know. This is happening for 20 years.
Mm-hmm. And I worked for a corporation that had the rule, if you discuss your pay, you will not work here. And I had seen that happen to several others, so no one ever
and that's a law in
their
many
pay.
states.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not surprised by this, but Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote a very influential dissent saying these people don't understand what it's like in the real world. People aren't just standing around the water cooler discussing their pay. Justice Ginsburg said the ball is in Congress, this court, and challenged Congress to do something about it. They did, and then Congress passed the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act.
They did. They did. That was a lot of work, too. When that ball went to Congress, I went with it. And the coalition around the country paid for me to come to Washington, and I testified twice in the House and twice in the Senate.
And that was in 2009?
That was in 2008, 8, and 9 some.
So the Ledbetter Fair Pay Act was the first bill from Congress that President Obama signed in his office. The act guarantees the right to sue within 6 months of the most recent discriminatory paycheck. What was it like for you to stand next to President Obama and see your bill being signed after all of that work?
That was an awesome, awesome experience because I watched that signature and he would stop and, so he could get another pen. And I knew every little mark on that would be a protection for women and their families around the world, and especially in the United States, because it is so critical that we have that protection. And the law had, in previous years, had always been interpreted based on paycheck accrual rule. If you're still getting a check and learn you've been discriminated against, you can file a charge. But that was just an awesome experience to know and to celebrate. And one thing I'd like to add about that bill, that law was co-sponsored and sponsored by Republican Party and the Democrats, and it was voted into law by both parties, and it passed in Congress within 18 months.
We knew that's
18
amazing.
months.
I think it's important to note that despite Lilly's years fighting this injustice and the Ledbetter Fair Pay Act being signed into law, you never received any back pay or compensation.
No, never got a dime. In fact, Congress tried to get it worded so that I could get at least the 2 years back pay, because when an individual has lost and been discriminated against, the law only allows you to go back 2 years. That's the only you can go back. So I was awarded $60,000 for those 2 years, and Congress tried to get it so that I could get even my Social Security adjusted, but they never could get it to pass. So I never got a dime, not 1 cent.
And I know you're passionate because you don't want other women to have to face that.
No, no.
You were telling me backstage that how does this affect families for generations financially?
It's just unreal, because I talk to groups all over the country, and it's, the children even understand it. They get it. They understand if mother doesn't get to work or she doesn't get the right pay, they can't do certain things. So this is so critical, because it's your retirement, it's the way you live today and on into the rest of your life. And if you miss it,
and exactly,
it's gone, and there's nothing that no way you get it back.
No way you can get it back. You've continued your fair pay advocacy to include issues that impact working mothers. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Working mothers is really a passion of mine, because so many women talk to me about working 2 jobs through the week and a day on the weekend, and that hurts their families. They have children. They're not at home to prepare meals or even to shop for food, and the children eat and get by with whatever they can, and they still cannot pay all of their bills. And if they have a little catastrophe or something comes up, or the car breaks down, or a child gets sick, then they're just devastated for quite some time. They just can't make it up. And this is a struggle in this country, and should not be this way.
It's hard to believe. I mean, clearly we need equal pay, because it's simply what is just and fair. The impact of unequal pay, as I said, lasts lifetimes. But, with people like you, we're changing that. And I do see progress. But what actions can women and men take to help ensure that we all have equal pay in the workforce? And what can companies do as well?
We all need to support it and get behind it. And what I have loved about this work, the men understand it. They understand it. They talk to me about their mothers working 2 jobs to send them to law school, or they talk to me about their wives struggling to work. And this is so critical that we need their support. We need everybody's support, because this is not, like I said, a Republican or a Democratic problem. This is everybody's problem.
It's humanity.
It's everybody's. And equal pay law was passed in 1963. The main problem with that, it was never enforced. There's not many rules and regulations that require information to back it up and to make sure people are adhering to it. But we have some major companies like yours and others out there today that are making those adjustments and stepping out and stepping up. And those companies already know that their net profit is greater, their product or service is better, and they're more successful simply because they're known for treating their employees correctly and right by the law.
And I would say women are pretty good investments. Do you agree with that?
I do. I'd take a woman any day. I would.
We don't have that much more time, but we do have a little time. And I was reading, or just on the way down, and I saw some news about the soccer team. How do you feel about that, and what are your thoughts on their next steps? And can you fill the audience in?
They should not have had to do this. First of all, they should have gotten equal pay compared to what the men did, and I'm so thrilled that they have sued for equal pay, because that's the only way you can make a change. In my case, it would have been easy to retire and let my case go, but I just couldn't do it. And even though I warned my family, if I start, I'll be in this a long time, because I knew I would not give up. And the soccer team, I hope that they get what they should and get their back pay too. A lot of times, groups like this, when they do get what they're suing for and asking for, they don't get the back pay, but maybe they will. And maybe I can go and march with them or back them up. Maybe we all can.
So, and what's next for you?
Well, I'm working on paycheck fairness in Washington right now. I was up there about 3 weeks ago to kick off actually it was on the anniversary of the Ledbetter bill. So it might have been longer than 3 weeks, but it was on that anniversary. I was in D.C. and we kicked off the paycheck fairness bill. We need some more updates and some new bills that will push the law through and make sure that it's enforced. A lot of states are passing their own laws, and they have them, and they're enforcing them. But we still need the national one, too, as well.
I am so in awe of you and your fearlessness, and you give people like me, and I'm sure the people in the audience, hope and courage. And I think, I know I cannot thank you enough for setting such an incredible precedence. The one last question I have is, what would you say to little girls when they're thinking about dreaming of their careers and what they will be, and how should they look at asking for a raise and approaching their first boss?
Those are the people I really enjoy speaking with, because I tell those little girls that there's so many trails out there in the United States that have not been blazed yet. There's still so many items that they can do that have never been done before. It's just there waiting for them, because we still see on the headlines of the newspapers, even today, the few we get, about first African-American woman heads Fortune 500 company, or first woman done this, or first woman did that. We still have so many ways that we can have, the women can pursue their dreams. And it's never should put limits. They should set their goals high and never accept less, because they can't achieve those goals in this country. We have the resources, and reach out, and I learned from my experience. I had a lot of support and a lot of people across this nation that helped pass the Ledbetter bill.
And so, embrace ambition, right?
It
We have
is.
to
That's
say that,
embrace
because
ambition.
when I think of you, it's all about embracing ambition. So thank you. Thank you so much.